And so you're seeing that the elements are melting in the heat. North and South Pole is being destroyed. New York was flooded so many years ago. And so, these are all biblical attributes that they're studying, and, they should rethink their, way to GOP and go, think above that.
Yeah, I think evangelicals, I mean, they are basically Donald Trump got the evangelicals by saying that he was going to do away with the Johnson Amendment. And I've seen no action toward that, but that's what he told them. And by saying that he would put somebody on the Supreme Court who would blow up Roe v. Wade, which he did. Neil Gorsuch is pretty outspoken about that kind of stuff. So, I have a real problem with even calling these people who call themselves evangelicals Christians. Broadly, at least the political leadership of the evangelical movement. I do not consider them Christians, or at least followers of Christ. Gary, thanks for the call.
Hi there, I'm Marie with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving donations, volunteering, or spreading the word about Free Speech TV, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to exist. And for that, I want to say thank you. Now you can give to the network powered by the people by donating an unwanted or used vehicle through our Vehicles of Change program. If you have an old car, RV, or even a motorcycle, Free Speech TV can use it to grow and thrive. You can make a bigger difference in supporting Free Speech TV by giving an old car. It's a great way to support the network without having to dig into your bank account. Just call 877-378-8669 and ask for more information about Vehicles of Change. Again, the number to call is 877-378-8669. If it has a VIN, we'll take it in. Thank you.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. What a fascinating week it's been, huh? Norris in Kinder, Louisiana. Hey, Norris, what's on your mind?
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was going to call you about another matter, but since this guy, Julio, was on, I was listening to, this guy is, I can't explain it. It's people that think like him is running this country.
Yeah, that's true.
You cut all this from the poor people, which they need it, regardless they're on drugs. Then he made a comment. I could be mistaken, but I believe he admitted being once a drug addict.
I think he said that he had used drugs. And that he drank, or he said he drank a lot of alcohol once or something.
Yeah, he was close to telling the whole story about his life, but he caught himself.
Yeah.
These guys that run the country, it's a reversal of Robin Hood. They rob from the poor and give to the rich.
Yep. Yeah.
It's sad.
Yep. And I just don't get, I still don't get the logic of saying to somebody, okay, our drug test determines that you have a drug problem, therefore we're going to deny you medical care. I don't get it. I don't get where there's any cultural or social good out of that. I get it that it can be interpreted as a slap in the face, and this sounds like a variation on Rodrigo Duterte's. He's literally paying cops $200 a head to go around, find drug users, put a gun to their head, and kill them. It's a little more than a slap in the face. But I don't think you solve your drug problem by killing drug users or by slapping them or by denying them health care benefits. I think you treat them like human beings with compassion, and you provide them with the medical services that they need, both as a result of their drug addiction and to the issue of their drug addiction. Your thoughts, Norris?
I totally agree. This is sad because I know quite a few people who own this insurance and on fixed income. These people is miserable.
Yeah.
Absolutely miserable.
Yeah, I don't know anybody. I know people who are living, who are on food stamps or who are on Medicaid or whatever, or both, and Social Security disability. My friend Michael lived for years on Social Security disability after he broke his neck. He had nothing. He never had 2 pennies to rub together. I mean, this is not the leisure lifestyle that I guess people like Julio would have us think it is. If people just sitting around going, hey, bring that government check over here along with some bonbons, and another pint of whiskey.
With nobody.
And like I said, you know, if there's a small percentage of people who are abusing the system, I don't have a problem with that. That's you know, 10, 15 cents a year out of my taxes, in quote fraud and abuse, that allows a system to be in place that is literally helping, probably over 100 million people in the United States. And I see that as a good thing. Norris, thank you for the call, and thanks for your agreement. I appreciate it.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back in just a minute with your call. Stick around. And welcome back. Free Speech TV, this is the last day this week. I think we're going to continue next week, but hey, help us hit some goals here. By the way, great news. A donor named Steve has put up and thank you, Steve, has put up a $10,000 matching pledge, which means that your gift, every donation up to $10,000 will be doubled. This is really a big deal. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200, your $500 becomes $1,000. Ultimately, not specifically for the purposes of the gifts of the swag, but in terms of what ends up with Free Speech TV. So this is great news. And hopefully it'll help us get a little bit back closer toward meeting our goals for this fund drive. I mean, we're still way behind. So please call now, 877-378-8669. With a $60 gift, you get a Constitution of the United States from the ACLU, complete with instructions of how to react if you are stopped by the police. Plus, we've got these cards for LGBT students at college and for protesters at demonstrations. Know Your Rights, published by the ACLU. So, you know what your rights are. That's with a $60 gift, or $5 a month for a year. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for a year, you get a copy of Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And a pocket constitution, and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or the LGBTQ Know Your Rights, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $360 gift, which is $30 a month, the $240 would be $20 a month. With a $360 gift, you get the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the U.S., the Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come on in, drop by Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful city, beautiful time of year. The summer here is just extraordinary. And it can get hot, but I kind of enjoy that, actually. Come on down to Washington, D.C., or up or over or whatever it may be for you, and I'll buy you lunch. So, but the important thing is not so much, what kind of swag you're going to get, what kind of gifts you can make off with, but that you're helping keep in place independent media. For example, yesterday, the House of Representatives, I talked about this several times yesterday. In fact, I gave out the number to the Congressional Switchboard and asked people to call your member of Congress because Congress, the House of Representatives yesterday voted to roll back Dodd-Frank and basically eliminate or defenestrate the consumer protection, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren's creation, that has recovered more than $20 billion in money stolen from you and me, from people who have invested their money with people in the investment industry, and we've gotten ripped off. That agency has recovered over $20 billion and given it back to consumers. They recovered that money from the big banks. Big banks are not happy about that. So they go to their Republican toadies and they say, pass a bill that does away with this thing. You know, will not someone, rid me of this meddlesome priest, or was it tiresome, whatever it was. And so the Republicans say, well, of course, Mr. Billionaire, we'd be more than glad to help. Right. So that message somehow didn't happen yesterday on the corporate media. Nobody talked about it. As I said, we talked about it here. I'm sure it was talked about on other programs on Free Speech TV. There were a number of things that happened yesterday. Ryan Zinke used to be the congressman from, Montana, I think. And he's now the Secretary of the Interior. He wants to cut by 80% the programs that have to do with climate change relative to the Department of Interior. And he was being questioned by Congress yesterday, and he was going on and on about how, well, we don't know, the science is not conclusive, and we're, giving this normal climate denier BS. And it got no coverage. Nobody in the media picked it up. It happened after we got off the air. I didn't mention it on this program. I'm mentioning it now. But, I mean, there's stuff going on that we just, we're not being told about in the corporate media. But Free Speech TV is here. Free Speech TV is doing an extraordinary job with a wide variety of diverse programming and, news-based stuff. This network is really important. And you can be proud to be a part of it. So call now, 877-378-8669. Call now, please. Make a contribution, whatever works for you. Please.
Hey, want to hear that clip again? Subscribe to the Thom Hartmann Program on YouTube to see all your favorite show highlights.
You can support the Thom Hartmann Program and see video of our entire 3-hour show over at patreon.com/Thom Hartmann. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And Rex Tillerson was just on TV talking about how basically this blockade of Qatar is creating a problem for the United States. You'll recall Trump tweeted, I went to the Middle East and said we got to stop funding terrorism, and the Saudis said, yes, it's in Qatar, yes, and he basically trashed Qatar. Apparently not realizing, we've got from several sources, the president did not realize that the U.S. Central Command is located in Qatar, that there are 10,000 American soldiers stationed in Qatar, that our largest Air Force base in the region is in Qatar. And so he called them funders of terrorism. And this is, what's really going on here is a power struggle within Saudi Arabia and within the region that, in fact, of the 10 demands that were delivered to Qatar day before yesterday by the Saudis and their buddies, one of them, the third one, as I recall, was to, shut down Al Jazeera or get it under control. They don't. These monarchies. These are governments that routinely kill people who speak out about politics. Right? I mean, it's hard to even. Saudi Arabia. Half the population, all the women in Saudi Arabia, literally have no rights. Cannot vote, cannot drive, cannot own anything. Everything that they own is in the name of their father or their son or their husband or their son, if there are no other male relatives. And that's just the beginning. I mean, these are states that practice functional slavery in many cases. And Trump's tweet did so much damage in this thing. I mean, we're on the brink of war. Turkey's moving troops down there because Turkey's got an Air Force base in Qatar with 500 Turkish soldiers in it. So it's like, and so here's Tillerson trying to clean up the damage from Trump. And and this literally could lead to a world war. It definitely could. Anyhow, Margaretta, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, listening on Sirius XM. How are you?
Hi there, it's Margarita.
Margarita.
I would be surprised if we don't end up with World War III before this. Hope we come out of it without it. But anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to tell you that Julio knows very little about food stamps. Food stamps are electronic, and it's almost impossible to buy a bag of crack with them.
Yep.
I would say. So, so out of touch. Anyway, that's all I needed to say.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And you're right. And there was a time when you had literally coupons, and they were traded as script. They were a sort of underground currency. But now that it's all EBT cards, these electronic cards, that pretty much ain't happening. Excellent point, Margarita. Thank you very much for the call. Amanda in Anza, California. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Anza, California.
Hey, what's on your mind?
First of all, you have an amazing, beautiful mind, and I'm so grateful to listen to you.
Thank you,
I
Amanda.
just wanted to talk about Julio saying that people just need to buck up is ridiculous. About 6 years ago, I had a really horrible back injury and started taking painkillers. And the way they work, your brain stops making the dopamine and serotonin little by little as you take them. So you need more and more, and you end up with this horrible addiction most of the time, a lot of people. And for years, I was stuck in this total cycle, and I couldn't have held a job or anything. And I needed help getting off of them, and my doctor couldn't help. There's nothing your primary care can do. I went to the mental health program, which is a joke. They couldn't help you either. And I was so desperate to get off these things. And finally I met someone who said, well, why don't you go to a methadone clinic? And I thought, well, that's just for heroin addicts. And they said, no, it's for any opioids. And I thought, why doesn't anyone know about this? So I went to them, and it was incredible and has changed my life because your brain needs something to help it balance out so it can start making the dopamine and serotonin again and get to a normal level.
Well, it's also the endogenous opiates. Your body produces its own opiates, and
yes,
yeah, and that shuts down when you're taking exogenous opiates.
If you just stop. You can't just buck up and stop because then you go into a suicidal depression. So this clinic was amazing and saved my life, and it was funded by California. So I love California. And in a year and a half, I mean, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I have an amazing job I love. And without the help, I wouldn't have that.
Have you successfully weaned yourself off the methadone now?
Not yet, but you know what? I'm not going to go fast. I'm on a very small dose, and I'm not going to go fast because if I do, my brain will immediately start telling me, okay, there's a little pill that can give you a little more. So I'm taking it very slowly. I'm only on 20 milligrams. It's very slow, and I'm not in a hurry because everything is going so well. And I'm able to have a job now because of this, a great job I love, and pay for my own insurance instead of being stuck in addiction and stuck on welfare Medi-Cal. So he's just so out of touch. Yep. It's ridiculous.
Well, he's believing these old conservative talking points that are pretty much only believed by people who are members of the Lucky Sperm Club, who were born, who have some wealth or who have been fortunate enough to come into circumstances where they have privilege, basically.
Yeah, exactly. If I had money, I could have paid a long time ago to go to some fancy rehab, but I don't.
Right.
Yeah. So thank God I got the help I did. So it's just ridiculous. There's so many people out there that are in the same position that got injured and are stuck and don't know what to do. And I really wish that was actually part of a treatment plan. Okay, you're injured, but down the road, if you heal enough that you don't need these, this is part of the treatment plan to get you off of them. I don't know why it's not. That's very strange to me, and why the doctors don't say, hey, there's these clinics that can help you get off.
Well, methadone is controversial in some circles because it's a narcotic itself.
Liquid jail, but you know what? From my experience, I have seen so many people graduate from the program, and it has not been liquid jail. It has given me my freedom back.
No, when I was a teenager, I knew a number of people who were heroin addicts, and several of them went on methadone and successfully not only got off the heroin, but ultimately got off the methadone. And that's a good thing. I'm just all in favor of treatment. However, whatever works for people. And it sounds like you've got it under control, Amanda. And I think that's an absolutely wonderful thing. And why we should say to somebody who is having a problem with drug addiction, whether they became drug addicts because, one day they just tried something and said, oh, this is fun recreationally, and they ended up stuck, or whether it's because they, like in your experience, they had an injury. I went through something similar to that when I was a teenager. I broke my back skydiving and was on narcotics for about 6 months. I don't recall a horrible withdrawal from it or anything, because my experience was once the pain ended, my reaction to the drugs changed, if that makes sense. But everybody's got their own physiology and their own biochemistry, and we need to deal with these things appropriately. Amanda, thank you for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it. That was a very important one. Steph in San Diego. Hey, Steph, what's up?
William, one moment, I got to get my phone off speakerphone. Sorry about that.
Okay.
There we go. Yes, I was just calling with regard to Mario. I'm not sure who he is, and that's not
Julio.
the point. The point is, when listening to the topic, I like to look at things in political terms and what is a democracy and what are those values of the democracy. And one of the first thing that comes to mind is you want to help most of the people most of the time that you can based on what most of the people think they need. And, of course, health care is important. Medicare is important. But what I sensed or felt mostly from this person was a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness, and a lot of hate and casting a least of these onto someone else to rationalize not taking good care of the people.
Right.
In fact, those are the people that we need to be helping the most, because the society is only as great as its weakest link, if you will. And if we're not caring about those people, they could be committing crimes, and you could argue all kinds of things. But it doesn't pass the first test. One, I think a democracy is very compassionate because it cares about the people.
Yeah.
We the people, in theory.
Yeah, Franklin Roosevelt was the guy who said that, the way you measure the quality of a society is by how it cares for the least among it. And as you just echoed, and it's brilliant. And somehow, it's just not part of the conservative mantra. Steph, thanks for the call. Great to hear from you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls, and we're going to check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world here. And welcome back. Gene in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania. Hey, Gene, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Good to speak to you. Second-time caller. The first time I wasn't too articulate, but I've been following you since the days of Air America, and you've just educated me in so many ways. But enough of the patronizing here. I'm trying to stay on topic. I think I suffer from President Trump's stress disorder, and my attention span is just only slightly longer. I called about the Financial Choice Act, H.R. 10, and I follow the news. By the way, can you hear me? Because I forgot to take you
just fine.
Speaker.
You're just fine, Gene.
Oh, great. Okay. It's H.R. 10, and it's touted by our Congressman Lou Barletta, and it explains that it's going to end the too-big-to-fail taxpayer-funded bailouts and remove burdensome duplicate regulations on small businesses. From first glance, this sounds like a pretty good idea, but I know where this guy is coming from, and I'm wondering what other ingredients are in the snake oil portion.
Those words are all, Frank Luntz tested buzzwords that mean privatization and cutting taxes. Excuse me, deregulation and cutting taxes.
Yes, I get the whole Republican mantra.
Right.
And I found a YouTube video from Senator Elizabeth Warren dating back about a month ago. And this seems like an issue that should be more out in the public attention. Of course, it's another one of these bills that was passed 233 to 186. And like I said, at first glance, it doesn't sound too bad. And I'm just wondering.
Are you talking? Are you talking about the that piece of legislation that was passed yesterday that guts the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and Dodd-Frank?
Yes. Congressman Barletta refers to it as the Choice Act, and I Googled it. I found some news sites, and there's the actual PDF document, but of course it's all in legalese. I mean, you have to have a law degree to interpret it.
Yeah. No. Well, what it does basically is it deregulates the banks and knocks out the knees from underneath the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So it makes it harder for the government to operate in your or my interests, and I believe it may do away with the fiduciary rule, or that was a separate piece of legislation, wasn't it, that they put through a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, this would do that too. Okay, so in other words, it also says that if you're giving money to a financial advisor to your 401k or your retirement money, that they don't have to tell you that they're putting it in this mutual fund because it pays them a 5% commission, as opposed to that mutual fund, which only pays them a 1% commission, even though this mutual fund is not going to produce the kind of returns that you need, but it's going to produce the kind of commissions that they need. So it makes it easier for banks and financial service advisors to screw their customers. And it makes it, and by blowing up the CFPB, it makes it harder for you or me or the government on our behalf to recover any money from these banksters who have robbed us. And the banksters are the ones who are financing the Republicans in Congress who are voting for this kind of legislation. So, Gene, the Choice Act is a scam. It's just a plain old flat out scam. Thanks a lot for the call. We'll be back. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and let's check in with Talk Media News. This report brought to you by Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do, The Elements of a Meaningful Working Life, Great Working Life, and goatsfortheoldgoat.com. On the line with us, Patrick Gavin with Talk Media News. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So what's going on in the world today?
Well, now that it's all over, everybody, I think, is trying to make sense of what to make of what James Comey said yesterday. And also really taking a look at, given all the anticipation for his testimony, kind of trying to take a sober look at, okay, what's gonna come up next. I thought, a few takeaways that I had, from the testimony was like a pretty interesting response from the Republican Party. I mean, I think you can look at it one of two ways. The negative, I mean, from my vantage point, I'm going to guess maybe yours as well, is that Republicans didn't seem terribly bothered by a lot of what James Comey was saying. I mean, Paul Ryan, I think during it said that, kind of dismissed it by saying, well, Trump's just new to this. Senator Langford from Oklahoma, I believe, just said that Trump's intervention with Michael Flynn, I think he described it as, quote, a light touch. There did seem to be just not a great deal of outrage about what Comey was saying.
Wait a second. These are the same people who were totally hysterical, including Donald Trump, by the way, when Bill Clinton met with Loretta Lynch on that plane in the tarmac, and I think it was Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, that's, there are things that Republicans are outraged about from yesterday, and it's stuff like that. It's the leaking of the news from Comey to the Columbia University.
Right, but to say that Donald Trump doesn't understand that it's inappropriate to talk to the Attorney General or to the head of the FBI to try to get them to back off on a case, to say that he doesn't understand that's inappropriate, when a year ago he was saying that Hillary Clinton should go to jail for doing that same thing, or Bill Clinton should, kind of blows up this whole argument that Paul Ryan's trying to put forward, that Donald Trump doesn't know the rules of the game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. On the other hand, and maybe this is a unnecessarily pessimistic view, I do think that people think that about Trump. I think that they think that he is over his head, that he doesn't, sort of know what the proper boundaries are for the White House as compared to, let's say, life in the business world. I mean, it might not be, you probably can't justify that, but I do think that's what Capitol Hill Republicans think. I think that they think that this guy is over his head. Now, that doesn't mean that they should excuse it. But, you might, not you, but I think the Republicans would be giving Trump too much credit to really think that, he went into that meeting with James Comey totally knowing the weight of what he was doing. I mean, I think he knew it was ballsy and kind of being a bully. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
if he didn't have any consciousness of guilt, why did he ask all the other people to leave the room?
No, that's a fair point, and I think that one other thing, which I think you'll start hearing about, in terms of talking about what's coming up next. I mean, it's a good point that you'll hear, especially from Democratic lawmakers, which is that if you want to take what everything Trump says at face value, be it tweets or press conference remarks or whatever it is, why not just do what Comey did, which is go to Capitol Hill and testify under oath? I mean, there's a huge difference, as you know, between what he says on Twitter. He's giving a press conference an hour. I'm sure he'll talk about that, and then actually saying something under oath. And that's a fair. Obviously, I can't imagine Trump would do it, but that's a fair request. Give the weight of your words the same consideration that.
Well, Clinton made that mistake. Under oath. No, I did not have sex with that woman. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one other interesting thing I was just going to bring up about the Republican response is, despite some things that we just mentioned, on the other hand, no one really challenged James Comey's recollection of events. No one really accused him of lying. No one really questioned his character. I mean, for the most part, it was, especially in today's Washington, I think a testament to not only James Comey, but also I think a testament to the kind of pessimism that people have about the Trump administration, even from folks in his own party. Yeah. That really no one sort of did the standard, cable news thing, which is just, ad hominem attacks.
Right. Well, Comey is a Boy Scout's Boy Scout.
Yeah.
I mean, and after what he did with, protecting John Ashcroft and the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution from the predations of Gonzalez and Bush, that was a pretty big deal, actually. If you're old enough to remember that story. When he drove 90 miles an hour across Washington, D.C. to get to Ashcroft's hospital bed to prevent him from, being bamboozled into signing an authorization to spy on us.
Right. No, exactly.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big deal. On the other hand, well, who knows? But yeah, we'll see where this goes. I think the most important stuff was what Comey didn't say. He refused to say whether the president is currently under investigation. He said he wasn't under investigation back in the day, but he refused to say whether he wasn't now. He also refused to say whether or the details of why he thought that Jeff Sessions was at legal risk. And, I have a feeling that there's some that Mueller is going to be following some leads that are going to bear some fruit here. We'll see, that are not going to be good for the Trump administration. On the other hand, Mueller was the guy who did basically the whitewash for the NFL on the whole, sexual abuse scandal that they had. He's kind of a mixed bag in my mind. We'll see where it goes. Anyhow, what else is going on in the world, Patrick?
Well, just real quick on the Mueller thing. I think you're right that I think the folks in the White House have been more concerned about him. And I think the fact that he and Comey kind of have this long-standing relationship would, I think at least make you hope that, in fact, he's going to, probably be more in lockstep with Comey than perhaps, AKA the NFL, do a whitewash of what Comey said.
I'm just interested in the truth coming out. I mean, that's my only commitment. Whether Trump is, I realize, that there were Republicans who wanted to get Bill Clinton out of office no matter what, and they were willing to impeach him over a BJ. That seems stupid to me, and it backfired on the Republicans, in fact, and arguably, and I just, if you're going to impeach Trump, do it over something serious and prove your case, but let's not just make this a reflexive thing. I mean, there's too much of this. It's almost like Benghazi, on the left. It's Trump, Russia, whatever. I mean, there's 3 or 4 terms that have become like ticks. And anyhow, back to you, Patrick.
What is your level of optimism of the truth coming out? I'm fairly pessimistic.
I'd toss a coin on it. I'm 50-50. That's.
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife had asked me, because she doesn't really follow this stuff, yesterday about what came out of the Comey's testimony. And on the one hand, I'm like, look, if you follow this stuff, it was really damning. There was a lot in there. But sadly, I think that the way politics gets muddied up, and just the instant way you saw fake news charges being leveled, and Trump administration really muddying things, you can see how it just gets so complicated that people just throw up their hands in the air and then all of a sudden stop caring about these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Last thing, I know we got to run. I thought I'd just give a quick update on the important Georgia House race taking place down south. John Ossoff has raised $15 million in the last 2 months, which is probably not surprising. I think if it's not already the most expensive House race in history.
When is the election?
You don't have it on me. It's
Okay.
very soon. I want to say in a week or so, but don't call me that. I apologize for not knowing that.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
John Ossoff is polling now at 50 compared to his opponent, Handel, at 47. So good news for Democrats down south.
Interesting. Okay, Patrick Gavin, Talk Media News. Thank you, Patrick.
All right, take care.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com. And welcome back. Free Speech TV, this is the last day this week. I think we're going to continue next week, but hey, help us hit some goals here. By the way, great news. A donor named Steve has put up and thank you, Steve, has put up a $10,000 matching pledge, which means that your gift, every donation up to $10,000 will be doubled. This is really a big deal. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200, your $500 becomes $1,000. Ultimately, not specifically for the purposes of the gifts of the swag, but in terms of what ends up with Free Speech TV. So this is great news. And hopefully it'll help us get a little bit back closer toward meeting our goals for this fund drive. I mean, we're still way behind. So please call now, 877-378-8669. With a $60 gift, you get a Constitution of the United States from the ACLU, complete with instructions of how to react if you are stopped by the police. Plus, we've got these cards for LGBT students at college and for protesters at demonstrations. Know Your Rights, published by the ACLU. So, you know what your rights are. That's with a $60 gift, or $5 a month for a year. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for a year, you get a copy of Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And a pocket Constitution. and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or the LGBTQ Know Your Rights and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $360 gift, which is $30 a month, the $240 would be $20 a month. With a $360 gift, you get the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the U.S., the Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come on in, drop by Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful city, beautiful time of year. The summer here is just extraordinary. And it can get hot, but I kind of enjoy that, actually. Come on down to Washington, D.C. or up or over or whatever it may be for you, and I'll buy you lunch. So, but the important thing is not so much, what kind of swag you're going to get, what kind of gifts you can make off with, but that you're helping keep in place independent media. For example, yesterday, the House of Representatives, I talked about this several times yesterday. In fact, I gave out the number to the Congressional Switchboard and asked people to call your member of Congress because Congress, the House of Representatives yesterday voted to roll back Dodd-Frank and basically eliminate or defenestrate the consumer protection, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren's creation that has recovered more than $20 billion in money stolen from you and me, from people who have invested their money with people in the investment industry, and we've gotten ripped off. That agency has recovered over $20 billion and given it back to consumers. They recovered that money from the big banks. Big banks are not happy about that. So they go to their Republican toadies and they say, pass a bill that does away with this thing. Will not someone, rid me of this meddlesome priest, or was it tiresome, whatever it was. And so the Republicans say, well, of course, Mr. Billionaire, we'd be more than glad to help. Right. So that message somehow didn't happen yesterday on the corporate media. Nobody talked about it. As I said, we talked about it here. I'm sure it was talked about on other programs on Free Speech TV. There were a number of things that happened yesterday. Ryan Zinke used to be the congressman from, Montana, I think. And he's now the Secretary of the Interior. He wants to cut by 80% the programs that have to do with climate change relative to the Department of Interior. And he was being questioned by Congress yesterday, and he was going on and on about how, well, we don't know, the science is not conclusive, and giving this normal climate denier BS. And it got no coverage. Nobody in the media picked it up. It happened after we got off the air. I didn't mention it on this program. I'm mentioning it now. But there's stuff going on that we just, we're not being told about in the corporate media. But Free Speech TV is here. Free Speech TV is doing an extraordinary job with a wide variety of diverse programming and, news-based stuff. This network is really important. And you can be proud to be a part of it. So call now, 877-378-8669. Call now, please. Make a contribution. Whatever works for you, please.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday, and the lines are full. Nathan in Dallas, Texas. Hey, Nathan, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Can you hear me?
Just fine.
It's okay. I didn't know, there's a term that gets thrown around a lot, third world country. I didn't know the origins of it. I did some research yesterday. And so I looked it up. It's from the Cold War, blah, blah, blah. Right now, today, it doesn't actually have a defined, meaning.
Right, because it used to be the first world was the industrialized West, the second world was the communist countries of the world, the third world were the poorer countries, the developing countries, and underdeveloped countries, essentially.
Correct. So there's no second world anymore.
Right.
Really.
But there still is a third world. I mean, there's still the developing countries and the undeveloped countries.
How would you define a third world country? That would be my question for Thom Hartmann.
I would say a country that doesn't qualify for membership in the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. I think it's 32 or 34 countries, and they're basically the wealthiest 34 countries in the world. And
politics aside.
No, yeah, it's got nothing to do with politics. I think the poorest of those countries that are OECD members is Costa Rica. But basically it's a country where my working definition of a third world country would be a country where the government does not function well and where capitalism doesn't function well either, typically as a result of a lack of government infrastructure. And therefore, you've got kleptocracy, autocracy, massive poverty, a very small middle class, typically an oligarchic upper class or kleptocratic upper class. We see countries like this these days. There's a few in South and Central America. There's a few in Africa. I think there's a few that are among the former Soviet states, the Kazakhstans, that kind of thing. But,
a country that has a lot of military controlling everything, a lot of...
Yeah, generally speaking, countries that are not small d democratic in their political processes.
Right. How you really, all those definitions really closely, where are we on the border between first and third? Because
the United States?
All the things that you just described, arguably.
Describe this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we still have a substantial middle class. It's about a third of our population now. It used to be about 2/3 of our population, but it's still there. We still have a functioning political system, although it's been badly corrupted by faction, by special interests, with the encouragement, not just the permission of the Supreme Court. But I don't disagree with Jimmy Carter. When he came on this program a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and said essentially, what I asked him the question, what has Citizens United done to the United States? And he said it has turned us into an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery. And if anybody would know, it would be Jimmy Carter. I mean, the Carter Center has been at the forefront, along with the United Nations, for the past 30 years or so, of going around the world and checking whether countries are, their democracies are functioning well, particularly, as election monitors. And they've been forbidden from doing their work in the United States, as has the United Nations. In many Republican states, they will not allow election monitors from the UN or from the Carter Center. And that should tell you a lot. I think, just the brother of a man running for president of the United States throwing 80,000 people off the voting rolls in his state, just so that his brother could win the presidency. Jeb and George Bush in 2000. That's pretty third worldish. I think people around the world are looking at the United States and going, what the hell? It's like
the gun violence.
Yeah, the gun violence. It's the persistent poverty in our rural areas and in our inner cities. The inability of our government to deal with that persistent poverty. The extraordinary accumulation of wealth by a few thousand people in the United States, to the level of tens of billions of dollars. These are all indicators of third world countryness, and I think that we seem to be heading in that direction. Certainly, that's the trajectory that Reaganomics put us on. And I don't think we're there altogether, but I am very, very concerned.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet, but damn close. Nathan, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Lewis in Seminole, Texas. Hey, Lewis, what's on your mind today?
This is Lois.
Oh, Lois, I'm sorry.
It's a very, very simple thing. It's my observation. I think Donald Trump is a traitor. I think he has been under the auspices of the Russians for quite some time. I think he has kept it secret because he doesn't call. There is no email. There is no contact other than his underlings, person to person, which cannot be, tracked. And they give him the information that they get. And that's why Flynn is so important. And that's why Sessions is so important. And that's simply my observation.
Yeah. My prediction is that when all is said and done, we're going to discover that, the Trump organization took considerable funding from Russian oligarchs and Russian state banks over the years, and that worked to their benefit, and that Donald Trump actually genuinely believes, or believed, I think probably continues to believe, that it's in the interests of the United States to have a positive strategic relationship with Russia. And I actually believe that. I think it's in our interest to ally with Russia like we did to fight World War II. And like Barack Obama did, he allied with Russia for to put together the Iran deal. He allied with Russia to put together the destruction of the poison gas in Syria. I think that there is, but I think that what we'll find is that the thing that Trump is trying to hide is his economic dependence upon Russian sources. Mm-hmm. And my prediction about Flynn, and I could be very wrong on this, but my prediction is that what we will find is that Flynn had gone to the Russians and said, don't worry about the Obama administration's sanctions against you. We will clean this up and normalize relations when we come into office. And if that was the case, that was somewhere between inappropriate and highly illegal. And I'm not enough of a scholar of what is internationally legal and what isn't, but I'm guessing that those are the two things that happened. I don't buy this. He's a traitor. He's trying to give America to Russia. I mean, it's what's Russia going to do with America? It's
destroy it.
Now, how?
Well, I think they're doing a pretty good job now.
I think our own corporations are doing a pretty good job. I think our own billionaires are doing a pretty good job.
I agree, but look what he has done, gone to NATO, just what the Putin would want. He made everyone mad. They even laughed at him. He didn't talk about when one country is attacked, we're all attacked. He left that out, which is what Russia wanted.
But there is an issue, Lois, with NATO. I mean, in 1989, as I recall, or maybe it was 91, I think, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the deal that was made with George Herbert Walker Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev, and it was made out in public, was that we would assist Russia in turning into Russia and dissolving the Soviet Union. And we would assist the other countries in the region, the former Soviet states, coming into the first world, as it were, coming into democratic systems, if they would embrace democracy, if they would hold elections, and if they would follow some economic principles that we were recommending. And we sent over to Russia, to the Yeltsin administration, I think that was 91, 92, I was literally in Russia the week of the election, and I remember it very well. I remember watching Vladimir Zhirinovsky on Russian TV on the day of the election tell people that if they voted for him, he'd give them a pint of vodka and a chicken. And our deal with them was you do away with your empire, give up a whole bunch of territory and client states, and in exchange for that, we promise that we will never put NATO on any state that shares a border with Russia. It was explicit. And Bill Clinton went back on that in the 90s and started moving NATO into, I forget which country it was, I think it was Poland. And that flipped out Russia. And now we've got NATO forces doing military exercises in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, all literally right on the Russian border. And we wouldn't tolerate that if Russia was doing that with provinces in Canada doing military exercises, or if they had developed an alliance with Mexico, military alliance, where they're putting missiles in Mexico pointing at us. We would not tolerate that. And yet we're expecting them to tolerate that. So, this is not some, full-throated defense of either side. A lot of mistakes have been made on both sides, and a lot of bad acting has happened on both sides. But most Americans are completely unaware of the background or history of this. And NATO is an important strategic alliance for the United States. But if it's being used, and there's a bunch of neocons who have been pushing for a long time for NATO to basically be used as a provocation to provoke what might be a low-level conflict with Russia or some other country of the region in order to sell more weapons, basically. You've got a weapons industry that loves this thing and, that loves this conflict. And that concerns me.
Yeah.
Anyhow, end of my rant, Lois.
Well, I still don't trust Russia. But
I'm not saying we should trust them.
Okay.
I'm not saying I don't think we should trust China either. But we're doing. China has frankly I don't know I don't want to get into comparing countries, but China has a repressive government. They execute their own citizens if they get politically active, and yet we're embracing China. Saudi Arabia is like, for goodness sake. Lois, thanks for the call.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's not like we don't have a history of doing business with countries that are not, Western liberal democracies. Welcome back. Brian in Dubuque, Iowa. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind?
Hi, doctor. How you doing?
Good. Tom is better, though. It's just an honorary degree.
Yeah, right. Hey, you know what? It's all good. I was just calling in about the guest you had on, Julio, I believe was his first name.
Yeah, Julio Rivera.
Yeah, his argument was less government, blah, 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 but he wants the government to step in and get between you and your health care if you're using marijuana or whatever.
Right.
And, what if you had said to him, okay, but now why don't we do away with candy? No more candy for anyone, because if you eat too much candy, you will become obese and have heart disease and all these problems. So let's just do away with everything that's not good for us.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, at the top of that list would be tobacco and alcohol.
Exactly.
Tobacco kills 450,000 people a year. Alcohol kills 50,000 a year.
Exactly. How much worse is alcohol than marijuana? It's infinitely worse.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know if infinitely, but 50,000 versus zero. The number of people who've died from pot, in all of history is zero. And the number of people who die from alcohol just in the United States every year is probably in the neighborhood of 50,000 at least.
I would say that approaches infinitely, but we can disagree on that.
Yeah. Well, if you divide anything by zero, you get into infinite. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then he said, it's the open borders that's responsible for turning our kids into drug addicts.
Right.
How absurd is that? When did it become my responsibility to make sure your kids don't do drugs?
Right. Well, and beyond that.
And on top of that, Tom, isn't it human nature to experiment with things?
And beyond that, we've never had an open border policy. We had something close to it back in the 50s with the Bracero program, where people were invited to come across the border during picking season, and they were given a Bracero card and permission to work in the United States, essentially, but they had to leave. They couldn't stay more than 6 months. But it was so badly abused by employers, threatening people, because you could only get the card if you had the employer authorization. That the employers were stealing wages, they were sexually abusing women, they were just engaged in all kinds of horrible things. It was It was not a good program, the Bracero program. But
Right.
that's the closest we've ever come to having, what you might even call an open border. It's
Well, you know a whole lot more about that than I do. I'm just putting it out there that human beings aren't machines. We do have, we are human, and part of human nature is to try a mushroom or to try a plant or whatever.
Oh, it's not just human nature, Brian. All through nature. You find virtually every species of animal has some plant or fermented product that they will seek out to get high.
Correct. And here and so now I'm not suggesting we shouldn't try to tell people, hey, don't do hard drugs, or maybe try not to do drugs if it's not such a good idea. That we should be doing that, but we shouldn't be putting people in horrible prison conditions for doing drugs. We should have separate places that are nicer than prisons for people who are nonviolent. You shouldn't put a nonviolent person, or maybe any person, in a barbaric, terrible prison.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we need radical reform of the system. Brian, thanks for the call. Spot on. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Heather with Free Speech TV. Your support, whether through giving of donations, volunteering, or even spreading the word, has made it possible for the only independent progressive news network to sustain for more than 20 years. Now, you can give to Free Speech TV through the Branch of Gratitude. This program is a sustainable way to give that reduces waste through paper mailing, postage, and staff hours. By choosing to participate in the Branch of Gratitude, you are joining hands with the socially conscious community and sending a message to the world that Free Speech TV is not only here to stay, it is here to thrive. Please call 877-378-8669 or go online to freespeech.org. Make a difference and join the Branch of Gratitude today.
I'm Nina Turner, and you're watching Free Speech TV.
Welcome back. And in fact, I've got one of those Harry's Father's Day special razor sets. This is a new underwriter sponsor for our program, harrys.com. And it's really cool stuff. Anyway, welcome back to our program. And Anything Goes Friday. So Loretta in New Glarus, Wisconsin. Am I saying that right, Loretta?
You are saying that right. Yep.
Great. So what's up?
Thank you, Tom. Yep. I've been a decade listener from you.
Well, thank you.
And ever since Governor Walker has been in office, I've been watching what he's been doing. And the frustrating thing is I thought I had his technical stationery to contact him when I would get because I've been doing it through senators and Republicans, I have that listing. Governor Walker is a very hard man to get a hold of. He connects his lines with the DOT and the DNR, so I'm having problems getting to
You mean
him.
there's not a phone number for the governor's office?
Please.
Really?
No, I don't.
Wow.
No, he puts it out as, and I call it, and it's DOT. Then I call the other one, and he's DNR now.
Huh.
So I'm homebound, and my next point is because Florida, I do believe, tried to do drug testing.
Yeah, they did. In fact, the governor's wife owns one of the companies that does the drug testing.
See, that's where fortunately, I have 35 years of nursing. Now, I had to get a special certificate to do these drug testing. I know how this system works, and the money goes into private companies.
Oh yeah, and those drug tests. Back in the 70s, I had a friend who his name was Stanley, and I'd known him for some years. And Stanley was a chemist, and I'm not sure if he was even graduated from college, but he studied chemistry in college. He really knew chemistry. And High Times magazine was really a thing back then. And, a lot of people smoking dope. This was like 75. And Stanley came up with a little testing kit, just simple reagents that you could put on your pot or you could put it on your cocaine, and it would tell you what the THC content was or what the cocaine content, in other words, how pure they were, how strong they were, right? And he was selling these things in the back of High Times magazine for $10 or $15 a piece, plus $5 for postage. And the chemicals cost him about 15 cents. Stanley made hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of 4 or 5 years that he was in that business. He made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that was big money back in the 70s, by the way. That would be millions of dollars in today's money, selling these testing kits. And then in the early 80s, when the Reagan administration started really recranked up the war on drugs, the Nixon's war on drugs, when that happened, Stanley sold his business to one of these big drug testing companies for millions of dollars, walked away from this thing a multimillionaire. And I'd had this conversation with him a couple of times. He's like, it's amazing. It's 15 cents worth of chemicals, and I'm selling them to governments for $40. Anyhow, Loretta, I got it. It's the Thom Hartmann Book Club. We're reading today from the American. And welcome back. Free Speech TV, this is the last day this week. I think we're going to continue next week, but hey, help us hit some goals here. By the way, great news. A donor named Steve has put up and thank you, Steve, has put up a $10,000 matching pledge, which means that your gift, every donation up to $10,000 will be doubled. This is really a big deal. So call now, 877-378-8669, and your $10 becomes $20, your $100 becomes $200, your $500 becomes $1,000. Ultimately, not specifically for the purposes of the gifts of the swag, but in terms of what ends up with Free Speech TV. So this is great news. And hopefully it'll help us get a little bit back closer toward meeting our goals for this fund drive. I mean, we're still way behind. So please call now, 877-378-8669. With a $60 gift, you get a Constitution of the United States from the ACLU, complete with instructions of how to react if you are stopped by the police. Plus, we've got these cards for LGBT students at college and for protesters at demonstrations. Know Your Rights, published by the ACLU. So, you know what your rights are. That's with a $60 gift, or $5 a month for a year. With a $120 gift, or $10 a month for a year, you get a copy of Howard Zinn's book, The People's History of the United States. With a $240 gift, you get a copy of my book, What Would Jefferson Do? And a pocket constitution, and the Know Your Rights at Protest, or the LGBTQ Know Your Rights, and the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $360 gift, which is $30 a month, the $240 would be $20 a month. With a $360 gift, you get the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the U.S., the Voices of the People's History, the Pocket Constitution, the Free Speech TV sticker. And with a $1,000 gift, come on in, drop by Washington, D.C. It's a beautiful city, beautiful time of year. The summer here is just extraordinary. And it can get hot, but I kind of enjoy that, actually. Come on down to Washington, D.C., or up or over or whatever it may be for you, and I'll buy you lunch. So, but the important thing is not so much, what kind of swag you're going to get, what kind of gifts you can make off with, but that you're helping keep in place independent media. For example, yesterday, the House of Representatives, I talked about this several times yesterday. In fact, I gave out the number to the Congressional Switchboard and asked people to call your member of Congress because Congress, the House of Representatives yesterday voted to roll back Dodd-Frank and basically eliminate or defenestrate the Consumer Protection, Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren's creation, that has recovered more than $20 billion in money stolen from you and me, from people who have invested their money with people in the investment industry, and we've gotten ripped off. That agency has recovered over $20 billion and given it back to consumers. They recovered that money from the big banks. Big banks are not happy about that. So they go to their Republican toadies and they say, pass a bill that does away with this thing. Will not someone, rid me of this meddlesome priest, or was it tiresome, whatever it was. And so the Republicans say, well, of course, Mr. Billionaire, we'd be more than glad to help. Right. So that message somehow didn't happen yesterday on the corporate media. Nobody talked about it. As I said, we talked about it here. I'm sure it was talked about on other programs on Free Speech TV. There were a number of things that happened yesterday. Ryan Zinke used to be the congressman from, Montana, I think. And he's now the Secretary of the Interior. He wants to cut by 80% the programs that have to do with climate change relative to the Department of Interior. And he was being questioned by Congress yesterday, and he was going on and on about how, well, we don't know, the science is not conclusive, and we're, giving this normal climate denier BS. And it got no coverage. Nobody in the media picked it up. It happened after we got off the air. I didn't mention it on this program. I'm mentioning it now. But, there's stuff going on that we just, we're not being told about in the corporate media. But Free Speech TV is here. Free Speech TV is doing an extraordinary job with a wide variety of diverse programming and, news-based stuff. This network is really important. And you can be proud to be a part of it. So call now, 877-378-8669. Call now, please. Make a contribution. Whatever works for you. Please. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it's Anything Goes Friday. Audrey in Richton Park, Illinois. Hey, Audrey, what's on your mind today?
Good afternoon, Tom. It's good to get on the line with you again, and I know it's been a while. My comments are these. First and foremost, your guest, Julio, or whoever that was.
Julio Rivera.
Sounded extremely insensitive. If he wishes to talk about people having better eating habits and so on, please have him explain what happens to those who have been rendered ill by environmental pollution. Secondly...
Or those who live in food deserts. There's large parts of this country, particularly inner cities, where you just literally cannot find good food.
Right. And the thing is, though, my point is his argument seems disingenuous. If he cares so much about people bucking up and getting healthy, okay, then make the Koch brothers, the Koch Industries, Inc., and other members of industry buck up and stop polluting our environment, so on and so forth.
Amen.
But I originally called to say this. We have to be careful. The white supremacy movement seems to be one built on grievance. I personally believe that racism was created as a means of dividing and conquering the workforce. It's the best weapon that the super feckless amongst the super rich have.
Totally
Second
agree.
best is sexism.
Yep.
So, you have to watch, and I used to assume that these people were at least patriotic, and I forgot my history, and I think a lot of us have. If we recall, the American Civil War was started because, by a bunch of people, motivated by white supremacy.
Yep.
To secede from the Union. And what were they seceding for? They wanted the quote-unquote freedom to enslave other human beings.
That's correct.
And they were willing to burn this nation down to the ground in order to get what they want, or if they couldn't get what they want, then nobody could have anything.
Yep.
And I think we've seen a political resurgence of this. Now there are other factors that contributed to it. It looks like our election was hacked, essentially. We're investigating collusion by the Trump campaign. There's a suspicion of collusion by the Trump campaign with hostile foreign power. We're also looking at, again, white supremacy. Don't want people of color voting, the interstate cross-check program, these voter ID laws that came online after, the Shelby County versus Attorney General Eric Holder case, knocked out Sections 4 and 5. So we need to stop putting it past these people when they give us their excuses that they want us to pity them. I'm not going to pity them. These are people whose grievances are built on the necessity for me to denigrate myself as an African American and a woman and a single mother, so on and so forth. I got to denigrate myself so that they can feel superior.
Yep.
And they are willing to destroy. They are a destructive lot. They are willing to burn this country to the ground if they cannot have their way. They have shown that in the past. And, some of them might have been bamboozled by Trump, but the ones who are still sticking by him, despite all the evidence that is coming up, the intelligence, I should say, that has come up regarding these issues of the voting issues, the Russian hacking issues, the suspicion of colluding with a hostile foreign power. These are the people who are willing to burn it all down. And we need to stop underestimating just what level of destruction they are willing to exact upon this country.
Yeah, it's given that once before they've already tried to burn this country down, that being the Civil War, as you pointed out, Audrey.
Mm-hmm. So we need to be aware of that. I mean, we have, and bear in mind, they might be the unwitting puppets of what I call money supremacists. People like our beloved governor here in Illinois, Bruce Rauner, who's willing to socially and economically burn down the state of Illinois, it appears, rather than govern in a humane, compassionate, responsible, and democratic manner. If he doesn't get his way, we are going on. We still don't have a full fiscal year budget. This is, I think, the 700th and something odd day without a full fiscal year budget.
Wow.
This man, we've got social services about to, crumbling. We've got public universities that are struggling to survive. And this individual has shown himself to be motivated by greed and lust for power. Racism thing, whether or not that's his deal, I don't know. I do not doubt, though, that he benefits from it because, again, divide and conquer the workforce. This is a man who's shown himself to be anti-laborer because he's anti-labor union, anti-workers' compensation, working for the workers. He wants it to be more of a profit vehicle for the insurance companies. He's anti-tax because he doesn't want to be bothered. How do you get to be a billionaire? He's trying to say that Illinois is bad for business, but he became a billionaire somehow, along with the friends that support him, Sam Zell, Ken Griffin, so on and so forth. Again, we need to stop underestimating the destructive will of these people so that we can politically, socially, and economically fight against their destructive will.
Very well said, Audrey. Very well said. And we need to start calling them out again. I mean, I think the last two presidents to seriously call out the anti-democratic machinations of the rich were Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman. And we really haven't had a president since then who has called those people out, who has called them by name. And we really need to start talking like that. I think. Audrey, thank you so much for the call. Very well said. Glenn in Westerville, Ohio. Hey, Glenn, what's up?
Oh, hello. Thank you for taking the call. And as always, what a great host and what a great show.
Thank you.
I'm referring to a bit of Latvia history and their point of view on NATO.
Mm-hmm.
And I have mixed feelings because, by and large, I am a pacifist. But I also know that in a case like World War II, I would have fought. So I can't say I'm a 100% conscientious objector.
Sure.
And during the Viking Age and throughout a little bit of the part of the end of it, when there was safe, Swedes were having a big trade route all the way to Constantinople, and the major port is Riga, Latvia. In a few hundred years, you now have the Slavs and Germany, the Slavs as under actually that have come together as Russia, which first was started in Kiev, right around I think it's 913 A.D. And anyway, between that up to the end of World War I, Latvia has been repeatedly run by one country or the other. For a short period, there was actually a little bit of lightning compared to the other two. Sweden had it. But for the most part, it's been overrun and overlorded between Russia and Germany. And end of World War I, they gained their independence, they gained their constitutions, they gained their democracies, and then comes the secret Russian
the Soviet Union. This is true also of Lithuania and Estonia, by the way.
Exactly. But Riga's got that port.
Well, yeah, but there's also one in Vilnius, and there's also one in Tallinn.
True. Yes. I'm not excluding them. I don't mean that name.
I'm just, I've been in all three of these countries and all three of those cities.
The feeling of the people and the fear that history will repeat itself, and
sure.
And that is why that they right now, I think, feel some comfort that those exercises are being held there. I'm telling you, I have mixed feelings on it, but I also know that, we at least ought to, with one country, keep that original agreement, and that is no NATO in Ukraine. The Soviet Union, Russia rather, started in what is now the Ukraine. And if that is the deal, if that's the compromise that has to be reached, so all these other countries can be protected, which they should be, because if he starts doing Ukraine, it's not going to be long before he's going to do it in all the countries.
Yeah.
I don't trust Putin. I'm sorry. He has helped us in ways. He has given us a lot of ups on terror attacks at different times in the past. But I worry for my Latvian brother and sister,
just looking at the region, and I have no special insights into this. I've never been in Ukraine, but the western part of Ukraine, their original demand of the government was not to separate from Ukraine, and which is ethnically Russian and where they speak Russian, as opposed to Ukrainian speaking Ukrainian, although there's a lot of similarities. Their original demand was simply a demand of federalism. The mayors of the cities and their equivalent of counties and states along that western border, in that western part of Ukraine, were all being appointed out of Kiev. They were basically patronage positions for the government in Kiev. And the local people were saying, we want to be able to elect our own people. And that's where that's where that conflict began, as far as I could tell. And then, as it turned into an open conflict, the Russians came in and said, hey, these are, people who are ethnically Russian, they speak Russian. And if you go back and you watch some of the documentaries on World War II, I mean, Ukraine is, I think the word means passageway or center place. It's gone back and forth from Europe to Russia over and over again over the years. And, but, I get what you're saying. With regard to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, I don't understand, and again, I'm not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. This is not, an area of great expertise for me, but I don't understand why we can't say you can be an Article 5 member of NATO. We will defend you if you are attacked, but we're going to honor this agreement that we made with Russia back in 1991 or 92 and not put NATO forces in your country. We can still defend you. These are little tiny countries that are you know, a 10-minute flight away from Germany, and you know, and other NATO countries that are well armed. I mean, you know, so how about a compromise? Why can't we be working this stuff out?
Because, I mean, it makes no sense for Russia to be our enemy when we can both annihilate each other so many times.
Well, that's my point. And to have just gratuitous provocation doesn't make any sense. On the other hand, if there's a real genuine defensive need, then we should be looking at the larger issue, which is, you know, why is there conflict to begin with that Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia feel that they have to worry about? And let's get into that. And that would be, I would think, broadly, the relationship between Russia and the rest of the West. Anyhow, Glenn, I got to run. We're out of time. Thanks.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Welcome back. Billy in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Hey, Billy, thanks for watching Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hey, it's our responsibility to teach our kids about history, because even the president, he even asked questions like, what was the Civil War about? I really don't think he knows.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to teach our kids about, you know, it's one of the boringest subjects to them, but we need to teach them about our voting system and what it stands for, because that's what has happened to our kids. They don't get into it. They'd rather play video games. They had no, they're not, with me, I was thrown into it at an early age. My dad would run for sheriff. I campaigned for Clinton and bumpers. I handed out cards, you know, door to door back in the late 60s and early 70s. And that isn't done anymore, of course, but it should be.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, okay, like the 16th of this month, they're going to have a deal on Watergate on regular TV.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody ought to have their kids sit down and listen to this, or especially if they're voting age, to fill them in on what is going on, because the same thing is happening again.
Yeah, I think so.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I absolutely do, Billy, and I'm a big fan of the importance of history. Very, very well said. Billy, thanks a lot for the call. I'm totally with you. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Dr. Tom. Julio, I heard him the other night on The Big Picture.
Yeah.
And I would appreciate it if you'd explain to these people that when they talk over you or they yell at you, that we do not understand anything that is said by either one of you.
Right.
And a person who starts yelling only elicits an emotional response, and we no longer think about what is being said, so we even miss his point.
Yeah, I think the problem, Norma, if I may, is that over at Fox News, they encourage these kind of shout-over debates, but the guys who run the audio boards there will always pot down the liberal so that the conservative's voice can be clearly heard, and the liberal just kind of goes into gibberish. And if you watch Fox News, you'll notice that. And so they're used to talking over people. They're almost trained to talk over people if they're going to go on Fox News. And we don't do that. We don't pot people down. We don't do it here. We don't do it on our TV show. And so, yeah, I've had this conversation with a number of these conservatives where I just have, and sometimes even have to just stop and say, hey, stop for a minute. Nobody can understand what we're saying.
Yes, I know. I could even list them for you. But what Julio needs to understand is that those of us who have essentially figuratively been sitting at your knee for 9 years resent this. And I sincerely doubt that he has ever read any of your books the way a lot of us have. And he does not understand the respect we have for you. And we want a respectful, intelligent discussion, not someone yelling that just makes us mad, because then we have no respect for him. And he needs to stop and think about his manners. But also, he needs to think about the fact that the people who live in his friend's building, he should be thankful they have health care. He probably lives in a large city somewhere. And without health care, they are all at risk.
Yeah.
He probably orders a pizza from somewhere.
Yeah, Norma, I'm sorry, we're out of time, but thank you. Spot on. Hey, thanks so much to our show director, Louise Hartmann, to my executive producer, Sean Taylor, to our video director, Chris Mendelis, to our radio and TV producer, Troy Miller, to our phone screener and associate producer, Nate Atwell, to our writer-researcher, Nate Sweet, to our webmasters, Nigel Peacock and Jamie Holly, to our business manager, Ron Hartenbaum, to everyone at the various companies that syndicate this program and get it up and get it out and on the air, digital media, Pacific Love Radio, Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Cable Radio Network, Free Speech TV on Dish Network, DirecTV, all the cable providers that carry our show, including Manhattan Neighborhood Network, all the others around the country, to all the great folks at Free Speech TV and RTTV who work on the big picture, the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn, to Netroots Radio, to our newsletter editor, Sue Nethercutt, and the folks in our chat room. Hey, how you doing? To Ellen Ratner, Victoria Jones, Bob Ney, and everyone at Talk Media News, to Jay Goodman-Tamboli for tech support, to our affiliates, our sponsors, and to you for supporting our program. Thank you so much. So back to Anything Goes Friday here, Ray in Las Vegas. Hey, Ray, what's up?
Oh, I was listening to Mr. Julio, and it was really quite comical that he was talking about giving tax breaks to the rich to create jobs. When I walk into my local Walmart, and the first thing they've done is taken out the checkers. They only have checkers working certain hours of the day, and they put self-check stands in, and they eliminate jobs to the richest family in the country.
Right. Yeah, literally the richest family in the country. Yeah, good point, Ray. Good point. Thanks a lot for the call. Margaret in Aberdeen, Washington. Hey, Margaret, what's up?
Oh, thank you, Tom. I feel like I earn a master's degree every time I talk to you.
Well, thank you.
When I watch your show.
Thank you.
My comment was about Julio Rivera and his stain for drug users, but he fails to mention that the new cartels are the pharmaceutical companies that push the opioids onto the masses.
Yeah.
Now, I'm all for a healthy lifestyle, yes. And I will actually, especially tobacco and alcohol, but I will actually give a mulligan to smokers from the 1930s and 40s and even their next generation, because it was pushed upon them.
Well, they were being lied to. I remember as a little kid in the 1950s, 1960s perhaps, I'm pretty sure it was the 50s though, Ronald Reagan in a doctor's outfit saying, smoke Chesterfields, they're good for your throat when you have a sore throat.
Absolutely. And then they sent,
on television.
Even our military was sent the rations of cigarettes. So,
yeah, that's how my dad started smoking, was when he was in the Japanese occupation after World War II. Every week he got 2 cartons of cigarettes.
Yeah, and I will give them a mulligan, but now that there are no more tobacco lobbyists in the education, and even the ACA did smoking cessation programs for smokers. But back to a healthy or risky lifestyle. I mean, some people are born with a risky lifestyle. You know, if you have diabetes or you have any kind of birth defect, and then if you're healthy and you're young, you're jogging, you're playing sports, football, soccer, baseball, or if you're skydiving, mountain climbing, scuba diving, these are all risky, healthy behaviors. And one day, you know, these 20 years, 30 years, 40-year-olds are going to be 60, 70, and 80. And they're going to need a rotary cuff surgery or a knee replacement or all of these certain ailments that hit older people. And I understand why, you know, the younger people may not want to pay for the older Americans. You know, when you're young, you know, you're invincible, you're immortal, and you do all these things. And, oh, my God, even when I was 25, I broke my wrist from tripping over my cat in my kitchen. When I was 28, I scratched my cornea putting on sunglasses. Luckily, back then, my company I worked for paid all my insurance. I didn't even think about it. You know, it was just taken care of. And then when I was 30, they actually paid for my tubal ligation because that's when I decided I wanted to take care of my own reproductive health. And the insurance back then was so different.
Oh, yeah.
Than it is now.
Yeah, it was so much cheaper, and they paid for everything. Margaret, we're out of time. I'm sorry that we've run out of the show, but thank you for your call and your comments, and I look forward to our next conversation. My apologies to James and Rod and the others who are on hold here. Call back next week, and we'll make it happen. Thanks so much for being with us this week. I hope you have a wonderful and sacred and restful, and we all need to kind of go inside every now and then and recharge and heal ourselves, particularly in these crisis-laden times. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com. Wines have some of the highest pesticide levels in our food chain. This hour brought to you by ecowine.com. Pesticide-free wines, organic wines, imported from France by the Organic Wine Company, ecowine.com. Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. Super Beets are sourced from non-GMO beets, and they're packed with dietary nitrates, helping to produce nitric oxide for more energy, stamina, and support for healthy blood pressure levels naturally. For more information, call 800-223-8242 or visit tomsbeets.com.